Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Bass and Bonsai, back out in the garage. Today, this isn't going to be a quick video. I know I always say I'm going to make it quick. I'm not worried about making this one quick. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we're going to run through my rod and reel lineup, and that is not it. But I also had this, looks like a reel, right? Look at this. Big square, even filled, it's styrofoam. Guess what? This sucker's so light, there's no way there's a reel in that. Man, that made me mad. But we're going to do this quick unboxing. These are, I'm sending them to the home for Wayward Rods. These are the rods I'm not actually even using. So I'm going to blast through those real quick. And then we'll jump to my lineup. And not only am I going to show you my lineup coming for this, that I will be using as soon as the water thaws out and my fingers won't freeze, for 2022, and we're going to start. And what's funny is I have enough here to do a complete lineup for most people what they would use to fish, but we're going to basically start from the heavy to the lightest. So heavy, medium heavy, all the way down to ultralight BFS gear. So before we get going on that, let's just open this up. The Time, of course, everything you get is from the Time, even though I order from the LT fishing store, so I think that it's probably the same thing. But they sent me this huge big thing. It feels empty, and it very well may be. I don't know what's going on, but let me break out my knife, open this baby up. Got that side, one more. Oh boy, got a little rough. Got a little rough on that side. Oh boy, that spool is lightweight. Which one is it? What did I get? Oh, how generous. Give me another freaking sticker. It's like 50 of them. All right. I was actually surprised by this. I thought that was probably a chatterbait. I've got chatterbaits coming, by the way, from AliExpress. I've bought one before and it was horrible, but I gave them another chance and I ordered like 4 or 5 different chatterbaits from different places I found, different name brands. Which spool is this? Ooh, you guys know which one it is when you see that number? So we may have to stop right in our tracks, right where we're at, and do a quick little spool fitting. Because I didn't think this was quite available to be here yet. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's like pure gold. Focus. Oh, oh boy. Oh, looky. Look what we got here. Oh, do you hear that? You can't see it, but do you hear it? Oh, it spins for days. Too bad they didn't give me one to match it because I don't have a... Surely you guys can tell by that big rotor what that is. Look at that, no SV boost. Dang it. Or no boost, no. SV is the kind of the spool. Now this is kind of weird and new. I don't know if you guys know, if you can see through, you got to kind of look through there. Normally there's 2 pieces of plastic. See how there's a pin right there? So the pin is what that seems new to me. I'm not going to take the thing out, but we will take a break. I know we're going to get to my reel arsenal. I told you I didn't know how long this video was going to be. So hang on. I just want to weigh it. Remember, it has the 727. Isn't that an airplane or something? So I think that thing weighs, because it's got the bearing and the spacer in it. I can't remember exactly. Is it 6 something? 6.5. So that is a very, wow. It looks like it should be even lighter than that, probably because of this is on there. So hang on. I know. We're gonna get there. Hang on a second. Before we do, I'll give you a little preview to my arsenal. Now that this spool's in, he probably won't be on this rod anyway. Let's put that rod down for a minute. So here's the difference between a $54 spool and a $13 spool from AliExpress. That one feels way heavier. $11.43, still a very good spool. This spool actually surprised me. It's only 13 bucks. But now you're playing with ultralight and all kinds of power, right? Let's just see what it looks like. It is not going to match my gold, I don't think. It's the only downside. But hey, we like two-tone, right? Definitely some play there. So you will take what used to be the zero adjuster, which I did away with basically. Still not bad. And then once you get line on it, should way increase the BFS capabilities of this reel. But the stock spool is pretty awesome too. Okay, let me move all that out of the way. I'm actually going to leave that scale, I think, because we may weigh some baits, and I'll show you like what can be thrown. So, well, shoot. Hang on, I'm trying to find a place to set everything where it's kind of out of the way, but still within my reach, because at some point I'm going to want to be able to grab stuff better. So this one is actually in the lineup. This one I haven't used yet, and I guess I should show it real quick, because I have two of these, and if you guys have seen the channel, I'd actually have them for sale. But nobody's really, I guess, all you guys are into that 7'2" or longer rod in order to be a fisherman, right? So anyway, there's a difference between an old and a new Nrx. One is all chewed up and the other one is like virtually brand new. But as you can see, the cork actually holds up quite well. And they're both balanced. But the cork has definitely held up for, you know, not like crazy abuse, but a good amount of use. So anyway, let's just leave these right here. These are rods that I do plan on using, or I did plan on using, but then at the moment, and you'll see me bringing out a bunch of rod and reels, I just don't have a reel form or a place form, or I may switch back and forth. So this is that real cheap, crazy crankbait, what I call the crankbait rod. It's just called a fishing rod, if you remember right, under Mavlos. Very good rod. I plan on, I don't know when, at some point I'll use it. This rod actually I'm going to use, that's 522 SUL. The plan is, and as you'll see, I've got the Aldebaran on another rod right at the moment for my normal type stuff, but when I go to little creeks and streams, I'll probably put the Aldebaran on this. Possibility, actually, you know what? Possibility this reel right here could also do that too. So I've got a few reels, some of my higher end stuff, I don't have to buy 3 or 4 of these $300 reels. What I'll do is if I'm going out in my boat and I'm fishing, I'll have this, maybe different spool on a different rod. Then I go with Charles, we're going a little wading in these creeks and streams. I'll slap it on, you know, there's a couple of them I'll be using for different stuff. So that's a good possibility right there, or the Aldebaran BFS. So definitely using this one. At the moment, you won't see it in my lineup. Same thing with this 632, but this is kind of one that, I don't know, it's almost like it just doesn't have a purpose for me at the moment because I have so many rods. This one also, if you guys remember this rod, this is one that one of the last ones to come in, and you still can't get it. Like right now, I tried to order another one, wouldn't let me. It says it won't ship to my country. I was like, you already shipped me one. Here it is. I'm looking at it. But sometimes it pops up and it'll say it'll ship to you, so that's when I suggest you jump on it. But that rod is under 20 bucks. And I suggest, it's a real whippy rod. It's a 6-foot one. I wish I would have got shorter. They make a shorter one. I'd suggest a 5.5 foot or 5 foot. I think they make a 4.5. But very, very good built, solid filling rod, solid tip. And then of course we have Charles's, probably his favorite rod, the Delicacy. I just don't have it I don't have room for it at the moment in the lineup. And I've got my old rod I took back from the kids. That's the 6 foot, supposed to be bait finesse. I'll show you right where it says it. Everything's upside down the way I've got them turned. Finesse bait, sorry, had it backwards and upside down. But this is a stiff 6 foot rod. I kind of like it for jerk baits. Then I've got all 3 of my Cayenne Conqueror lineup that didn't break. I bought 5, 2 of them broke, 3 of them didn't. You'll probably see the medium heavy, possibly even the heavy, get a little work here and there, and then you never know, the 6'5" light, every once in a while I just break it out. But at the moment, none of these rods, not a single one, do I have a reel to go for them, or do I actually need them. I have other rods that I bought over the forever fall. I was out fishing and ordering rods. So all those, let me put them down here, they're all out. So what is in? Hang on 1 second. Now honestly, there's only 2 rods that are in my regular size lineup at the moment. Now I'm going to bring this one in, but he's actually going in with the, well, here, let me do it like this. I'm going to bring him in, but I'm also going to bring in what I had on in the first place. I don't know how much of that you guys are seeing, but all right, hang on. Let me get him in your view. So we've got my regular type baits, and just outside of your view I've got the lingo on the Tatula, but it's kind of not really for these baits. It's a possibility you can throw some of it, but it's not intended for that in my lineup. So we've got the 803 and the 802C Nrx rods. The 803 is definitely my like all around half ounce type stuff. You'll also see it's a versatile enough rod, jig worm rod, right? So I will throw like shaky, the bigger when I'm going like a deeper water, 1/8 ounce or even a heavier shaky head jig with the zinkers, you know. And I'm kind of like, I call it more or less, I'm power fishing that shaky head worm. I'm using the zinkers, I'm fishing it kind of more faster. I'm kind of more or less almost like you would I'm not flipping and pitching it, but I'm kind of doing like you would that with the jig. I'm throwing it up into places tighter, letting it drop, kind of working it harder, faster, sometimes even swimming around, doing different stuff with it. Sometimes I'll go that high up, but normally, and then the 13 fishing rod. That's my plan is, now you saw the Conquerors, the medium heavy Conqueror or this rod are like my main chatterbait rods. But then this year, I'm hoping that this rod will replace them, and it's only $80. But it feels real good. What else? So, I guess out of these rods, the most versatile is still the 803 or the 802. This rod is strictly more of those bigger baits with, I guess, like more like a jig style hook. So more it's a 6'7". This is 6'8". That's 6'8". And then we got what was started out at 6'10", but I brought it down to Tatula rod to like I like shorter rods if you can't tell, or you're not familiar with the channel. I like well under, actually 6'10" or less. Hang on, I was going to show you, and I'm going to put a video out. Somebody asked about my baits, but I'm going to show you just a couple. of baits and show you kind of the differences. So, like if I'm out throwing a regular sized chatterbait, like the Z-Man Original, I've talked about that too. See how big that hook is? I definitely want to keep it like on one of these more medium heavy, like the Conqueror you've seen over there. The 803 is like, it can do it because you imagine like a jig worm rod, if you're throwing a pretty heavy jig, 803 is considered like a medium heavy, and then this rod should be able to handle that. But if I was just throwing these and I didn't own any others and whatever, I would actually probably use that Kind Conqueror that I had, or still have, but I've kind of taken out of the lineup. But I would probably just use it because it is a little more solid tip than all these rods. And it's got a little more hook setting power. The downside to that is I feel it doesn't have a forgiving overall action to where that helps you keep them pinned once you've set the hook. But that's probably what I use. But what I'm kind of going with, and you know, you've heard me talk about the jackhammers and stuff, but this isn't a jackhammer. That's the Z-Man Custom. It's got and it's the 4. I think that's what the 4. I think you can get them with the 4 or 5/0 hook. But see the difference in the hook size. So what I'm trying to veer away to, and even these AliExpress ones coming, and some of the smaller chatterbaits that are out now, Z-Man's got their smaller versions out with a little bit different hooks. I'm kind of getting away. I'm still going to have these. I've still got a bunch. I don't plan on buying any more chatterbaits after these ones come from AliExpress because I got a box full of chatterbaits that I don't know how many are in there, but there's a lot. Covers you under a lot of situations. So I plan on like that for this rod, but like I wouldn't try to throw. I would throw this, and I'm going to try more this year. I'm going to try to see just how capable that 802 is for chatterbaits. I'm not going to try to throw the Z-Man Original. If the Z-Man Original has a downside, it's that big a hook. You got to have a fairly stout rod to, what I feel, you know, be more consistent on your hook sets and your overall, you know, hookups, getting the fish to the boat. I'm not saying you can't, but if you see me fishing with Charles, we kind of, you know, Charles seems to not care as much as me. I get upset. If I feel the fish, if I feel the weight of the fish and then he comes off, man, in my mind, I just working. It's like, what caused that fish not to get to the boat? I know it's not a big deal because I'm not a tournament fisherman, but Charles doesn't really care. He sees it and he's like, I'm happy, which is actually true. We catch these little, you know, dinks from time to time, and Charles will pop off right at the boat, like about half the time. But I think in his mind, he's like, I don't have to mess with unhooking it. And if you see me get hooked over the, I don't know, last however many years I've been doing videos, you know, it's probably the best way to do it. But I want to get those fish to the boat. So that's what you'll also see this year. The Tatula rod also, and the 802, I'm going to try to get into more, because my eventual plan is to be all custom. The Z-Man, I just like that overall. Even a touch better than the original, even though it's $1 or so more. I feel it's a little bit better for me and what I plan on fishing. But there's nothing wrong with Z-Man Original. Or if you are definitely a diehard with the jackhammers, I got some of those. Well, all right, we ain't going to get into all that, but I've got some somewhere in there. So that is my main baits, or my main rods for the heavy stuff. And I'm talking, I don't have a bunch of different ones. I'm going to try to place in here, if you saw the old 6-foot silver Daiwa rod that I said was bait finesse, as a jerkbait rod. I'm going to try to find a jerkbait rod. This rod sort of works. That's about the only one out of these. None of these others, they just don't work right for a jerkbait rod. So at some point you'll see a jerkbait rod added to this bunch. But this will do the job for now, or that little short 6-foot one that I'm going to try to just do away with out of my lineup because I can't recommend it to you guys because you can't find that rod anymore. So I'm going to try to find a good jerkbait rod. And I know that Tactical Bassin keeps talking about that 6'10" medium. Which Shimano is it? Not the Zodius, the next stage up. But anyway, I don't like 6'10", especially for jerk bait. It's too long for me. I'm in a smaller little boat and I'm closer to the water. If you're up in a bass boat, that's probably the perfect length. 6'8", 10, but honestly, these 6'8" feel too long for a jerk bait rod for me. So I'm gonna look for 6'6" or just even shorter than that jerk bait rod. It's on the plans. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but at some point. But this is gonna fill in for now. This, I cover all of my stuff. So if I'm gonna throw a jig, and I typically don't go over ½ ounce on any of my big stuff unless it's a possible like a swim bait, topwater whopper plopper type deal, or 3/4 ounce rattle trap. Those are about the only few areas that I'll go over ½ ounce. I like throwing ½ ounce baits with regular gear. It's just like it all feels better. I feel the overall distance without feeling like I'm overloading something, and the size of fish you'll catch. It'll catch little fish. ½ ounce rattle trap will catch a little dinks. It'll catch big bass, but a 3/4 ounce also. So I will throw that one. ½ ounce chatterbait. There's no need. I mean, anybody'd argue there's no need to even think about going up in a chatterbait. Some people go down to like 3/8 and stuff like that, and I've got a couple, but I just like a ½ ounce chatterbait. Now I've got the smaller ones on the BFS gear. Jerk baits, Vision 110s or the knockoffs, or I've almost went away from fishing any of the other stuff because I've tried some of the others and it's just like all those others kind of end up, they're just not as good as the original, or the RC sticks, which is a knockoff, is a good jerk baits, but they're the same size. I don't really, I've got a couple, I'm gonna be trying more, but more towards the BF side of smaller ones. And then what else? This is just my lineup. I will come in depth more in a video. I'm gonna come out with the actual baits and all that I would throw with my regular gear. But I keep it pretty simple. If this bigger stuff isn't working, I don't take long. I jump down to smaller stuff. So we'll jump to that, and give me 1 second, 22 minutes. I gotta hurry up. Let me get these out of the way, and we're gonna leave this guy. I'm just getting the two bigger ones out of the way. They're basically what you consider medium heavy. I consider that covering all of my bigger stuff. ½ ounce, 3 ounce, 3/8 ounce. Now I'll go down 3/4 ounce. I'll go down to 3/8. But usually if I go any lower, it's not on those rods. It's with some kind of BFS or something that started out, or some part of it is BFS. So let me set these in order. Okay, so let's go right here. And that's about the right order. You could argue that the Tula is lighter than the Nrx, but it's not. I think that's it. Okay, so yeah. So you go away from that, which you think, man, that's not many rods for one area, but then here is my main area that actually I fish. I'll throw the other stuff, and I kind of hit waters, pretty fast with chatterbaits or some kind of topwater. Oh yeah, buzz baits. I didn't mention those, but any rod basically that throw a chatterbait pretty good is pretty good with a buzz bait usually. Spinner baits, that kind of stuff. But I'll go pretty quick. If the bite doesn't seem to be working with those, I'll jump down pretty quick. And usually the rods like this rod for sure, even the 802 and the Tatula is on the verge. But so if I'm gonna go to like a smaller crank, I go away from, because I don't really throw big square bills or any kind of crankbait. Like if feel there's a fast bite on, I'm usually trying to get that with the chatterbaits and that kind of stuff. But when I drop down to here, like you've heard me talk about forever, the Dig It and some of these little square bills, I love throwing square bills. If that chatterbait bites a little off, a square bill, a little one, usually you can get them on that, or some kind of small crank similar to a square bill, not a real deep diving thing. Most of these rods will cover that, but then you guys have, and I've just put a video out on it not too long ago, my favorite fish catching bait. I wouldn't say it's my favorite bait to throw. I'd say a chatterbait is still probably my favorite bait to throw. I love it when they're on a chatterbait bite. Next would probably be a square bill. I love it when they're on a square bill bite. You're you're just fishing faster. The minute you switch to soft plastics, you have to slow down. But I found with the shaky head and the zinkers, you don't have to slow down a whole bunch if the fish will still take it going faster. Sometimes you got to slow down from there. But it's more versatile than a square bill or a chatterbait. So then, and the reason I have these rods is kind of for that reason. They're versatile enough to throw a shaky head, yet I can throw a little bitty, this one will even throw like a little 4-gram crank real well. This one will do it, but it feels like the rod's overpowered for it, but it will do it. But this is my favorite shaky head rod now. And then 802, of course, it'll cover all that kind of stuff. And it's almost overpowered. I wish it would have been like actually just a touch lighter overall instead of more like a medium, been on that medium light. But it's got a real soft tip, but then it jumps into what I consider a probably stiffer backbone than most mediums, but it's got a softer tip than most medium lights. It's kind of, which makes it a very good rod, but it's kind of one you got to get it used to, I feel anyway. And then the most powerful out of this bunch, and you guys seen it in a few videos over the years. Actually, I've had it a year or so now. But it originally had a different handle. Some people have asked me about it, like, well, mine doesn't have that handle, because I had a few people say they've got that Tatula, and they asked me for what the number is. They're like, well, I got one, but it doesn't look like mine. I've changed the handle out. That's the number upside down. Sorry for that, but I'm not going to change everything around. But this rod is one of the best rods that I've ever come across, and I got it kind of new used. You know, I've told this story before, but it was only like, I think I gave the guy $75 for it. That is an awesome rod. Now I could also swap out and run I could run just a Zillion with the SV boost spool on here, no problems, and cover everything I'm going to do with this rod, which at some point I may do that too, just to get out and see what it feels like. But this is probably, it would be my favorite shaky head rod, but it's almost a little too powerful. Like, it's definitely there, but what I plan on doing with this is more of, I feel any little bait, but maybe a bigger hook than what the shaky head's capable of, I'm going to try to do, or bigger hook than what the shaky head has. Basically, this is a more capable to get that hook set. So that's where I'm going to try to use this. Like if you see me talk about, and I need to find probably a 3/0, just that hook, put it on a Zinkers and throw it weightless. That's probably what I'm going to be this rod here, because it's got a soft enough tip with whether you're using this BFS reel or even an SV boost spool with that tip so soft. I don't know if I'll be able to show you. I'm going to try to show you guys the tip on one of these if you haven't seen what makes it so. And like Charles, he looked at it and he goes, it looks like it's been broken. They've repaired it. So here is the Tatula tip. This here, down to here, that's a solid graphite tip. See how I grab it? See how that flexes? I mean, it's stiffer than probably your, even some of those light tips, but it's pretty soft. It's definitely like somewhere between a light and medium light. I'd call it probably lighter than even the, Nrx, somewhere close to that. But then from there on, and I'm surprised I haven't like broke it yet, just on setting the hook. From this, the actual hollow part of the rod is more like a, I call it a medium heavy, like quick. You're talking less than a foot until it kicks into like a medium heavy fill. But so far, it has held up fine, and it makes it just one of the most versatile rods you'll get as far as throwing, I guess, not even say smaller, but say lighter baits with big hooks, the ability to do that and then get a good solid hook set. So awesome rod. I would try to weed it out of the lineup because you guys can't technically, it's not for selling more. I don't know if Tatulas, that look different, they still have that model number, be the same thing, but I know you can find solid tipped rods all over. The AliExpress, the biggest one that pops up all the time when I try to search, the Cast King makes is it the Spartacus 2 or something in like 3 different colors, but they're basically, you get 2 tips for like $50, $55. One's a medium and a medium light or something like that. I would recommend those if you guys are like, you like the idea of what the Tatula rod is. But you will not see me stop fishing this rod until it breaks. And if honestly, if it breaks, then I would probably actually go searching, trying to find another one. It's that good, kind of like this Teton 661. You can still get the 662, which I do recommend, but it's not a have to have. It's kind of, it covers everything, but I have rods I pick over this to go to the little creeks and streams just because it's a little too long, a little too powerful for those. It still will throw like 1.7 grams, no problem. You could fish it. But then on the high end, it'll throw. I've thrown the big whopper plopper with it, but you're kind of overloading it, and you know, a whole day of throwing. Which I was out one day throwing half-ounce. I thought it was a lighter spinnerbait, but it ended up it was one of those Strike Kings with the weight hidden up inside the thing. I didn't pay much attention. I put it on. It was casting it okay, so I spent the whole day fishing half-ounce spinnerbait with this thing. That chartreuse. When you see it in the video pop up, I caught a few big fish with this rod, but very capable rod. This one I don't have enough time with. So far, I like it. It's kind of in between. It's got a softer tip than like this rod, and it has a more moderate. So it's, you know, just the tip isn't what flexes. It flexes a little more into the blank, but it still has good backbone, more than this rod. So it's kind of that in-between rod I talked about. You see me in videos talking about finding. I think I found it. That's the light version, and I'm planning on getting the medium light and the medium also to try to find. I'm hoping one of those will be my jerkbait rod. This rod's a little too soft for that. This is too soft for an actual half-ounce jerkbait rod. But I'm hoping the medium light or the medium will be that, and I will shorten the. I will make this whatever I need it to be to feel right for a jerkbait rod. I will, because I've already. I guess I should show you guys. I've already taken some off this, and I'm tempted to. Even though I like the feel of this, I'm tempted to just put a solid, kind of like I've done it with all my rods. Once they become one of my favorite rods, I end up putting a different, and I found that I like the solid cork handles all the way. I mean, these are all right, but I just tend to end up liking those. If the Nrx rods weren't so expensive and what came with a lifetime warranty, I would probably think about switching those out, but those ain't nothing going on with those. They're just staying the way they are until they break, and they're going to get shipped off and hopefully get a new one. Okay. Well, you say you're late in arriving, but you're not really late. We just got started. Jay said he just got done doing some testing. Yeah, we ain't going to be doing no testing out here today because it is freaking cold. It is 20 degrees and dropping. It's supposed to be the high tomorrow is, I forget, real low, like 5 or 10 degrees, something like that. Okay, so I guess there are any questions? Nobody's even watching, 4 of you. But, so, like I don't really have, I guess this is a medium rod. I don't really consider it a medium rod. And I'm going to open a can of worms right here in this video. You'll get guys arguing BFS. What is and what isn't BFS? And I think it's around here is where the argument starts. Nobody argue that if you take an ultralight rod, put a shallow spool, and whatever you're throwing with it, you're fishing some sort of BFS. Now there's an argument with power, you know, why would you call it power BFS if you're finesse fishing? Well, you can power finesse fish a lot of stuff. You can take a bait that was designed for finesse and power fish it. Finesse fishing and power fishing don't necessarily have anything to do with the size of a bait, a hook, how big, small, whatever. I mean, I'll use a popper for an example. You take a popper and how aggressively you fish it depends on if you're finessing it or if you're power fishing it, if that makes sense. So you could take, and then size somewhat comes into play. So I could take a regular Pop Max. I could take the baby Pop X. And I can fish both of them the same way. And technically I could call it, if I choose to, I mean, I'm out fishing. If I want to say I'm power fishing, I'm power fishing. So for somebody to argue that, I don't really get into all that. Same thing with what is and what isn't BFS. So I guess you tell me that since this is a light rod with a shallow BFS spool, no matter what reel, because you can buy a lot of different spools for reels that were never intended for BFS, but you've got a BFS reel now, just like that guy. That's a BFS reel now. Yeah, it's a zillion. I don't know what drag, I can't remember what pound drags and all that, but it's a BFS reel at the moment, and it's on a rod that, even though it's rated as a medium, has a soft enough tip that is actually in this wheelhouse. I've got a Cayenne Conqueror over there that I showed you in that one, the 6'5" light, has a stiffer tip than almost any medium I've ever had, probably. Well, maybe not any higher end medium. Cheaper mediums, the old lightning rods, yes, but the new lightning rod is probably more like a Nrx 802. That's why I recommend that rod if you guys haven't seen any of those videos. The newest version of the lightning rods are actually pretty good blanks. They're pretty cool. I don't know how long they'll last. I never keep one long enough. My son has several now. So anyway, if you are fishing with any size bait that you struggle with throwing with normal bait casters, and you've gotten yourself a setup and you're calling it BFS, you're BFS fishing and you're not using spinning gear. I don't care what anybody says. If I put something on that I either never throw just because I don't like spinning reels, or I'm not going to use spinning reels, so I'm using all bait casters, and you've decided, well, I'm going to get, a lighter, maybe it's an SV spool on an 802, and you're considering that you're BFS fishing. Technically, you're just finesse fishing, if you really want to get strict, but if you call it BFS fishing, more power to you. It does not matter to me. All these rods right here, I consider, if I do any kind of power fishing, I'm power BFS fishing. Now, if I were to stick this with my regular spool, which you'll probably see me do, I stick a regular SV spool in this 802, and I'm throwing these half-ounce chatterbaits, the customs, and I'm just trying to see if it has enough hook setting power. I'm no longer BFS fishing. I'm throwing a bait that's bigger than a normal size BFS. I could throw it on regular gear. But the minute I do this and I put this in, and let's say I go, because this will do it. Say I rig up a Ned rig. So I put on a Ned rig, but I rig it up on a 16th ounce shaky head, and I'm kind of pitching and flipping it in places and letting it bounce real quick, and then I'm yanking and whatever. Well, technically I'm power fishing that Ned rig on what you could call BFS setup, right? I'm throwing a bait that normally on, say, a standard medium action rod with a regular deeper spool, other than if you're spending the money on SV or some of these MGLs, I'm not going to take a Black Max with the 6'6" rod or 7-foot rod that those come with. I'm not saying you can't throw that bait, but that bait would be a lot harder to throw and cast accurately and all that kind of stuff. So same thing with 16th ounce shaky head with the regular shaky head worms and all that. I've tried throwing, it's hard to throw with regular finesse type gear. I've done it over the years, and it takes a good shallow spool and a pretty good rod, and you can't really put as much power as you would because of the stretchiness. I've talked about it before. So I consider, when I'm doing that, I'm BFS fishing. Now, if I'm taking it, I'm throwing the zinkers on it, and I'm flicking it in and around and doing stuff, kind of like when I caught my personal best on this rod with the PW100, I was kind of power fishing that worm. I was talking about it in the video, how me and Charles, we were kind of sight fishing more or less. We were throwing up into the grass, almost like you would a jig or something, but anything too heavy would get caught up. But that zinkers, as buoyant as they are, once they get worn out, I've talked about that too. And you could throw it up in there, and so that's how I caught it. But I was definitely BFS fishing. I don't know if I was truly power BFS fishing right when I caught him or not, but it doesn't matter. You can argue it all you want. I power fish, I power BFS fish, I power fish regular way, I finesse fish with my regular gear. If you throw out and say you've taken your chatterbait, and you've taken a chatterbait, Z-Man Original, big old hook, you've picked out the exact skirt you want, you pick out the exact craw or worm, whatever thing, swim bait you want on it, and you cast it out, and what you're doing is you're trying to throw it right along a grass line, and you're barely turning that rod, you're barely filling that thing turn and you're wanting to feel it skip. You're so sensitive. You got it on a good rod like an Nrx or higher or whatever, and you're trying to feel that bait just tickle the tops of grass or right along the edge, and you're feeling it bump along the side. You're finesse fishing, right? You can just throw something out and crank it back in. If you're throwing a square bill out and you're not speed cranking it in, like I was kind of power fishing the square bill. If you guys seen those videos, I'd see you double with the Aldebaran. I'd throw it out and I'd do 2 or 3 quick cranks, stop. And in that cold water, that's what they wanted. But a lot of times in the hot water, I'll throw it out and I'm just slowly turning that. And I get that square bill, and the minute I feel it touch something, I let off. And what I'm doing is just working it across. I'm kind of finesse fishing it across the tops of grass. So calling something power, calling something finesse, it all is a kind of a mindset. And to me, it's simply the word aggressive. If you're aggressively fishing something, you're kind of power fishing it. If you're throwing something way bigger, also kind of thing. But typically, if you go smaller and if you go slower, you're kind of starting to get finessey. But you can take something that is real small and get crazy with it and be more on the, you're kind of power fishing that bait. I don't know if any of that stuff makes sense to you guys, but let's go to the other batch. Now, before we go to that one, I have kind of an in-between lineup. If you guys have any questions on these rod and reels, you've probably seen them all before. I didn't really specify exactly which one was on what, but I'm sure you guys know that's a Black Knight 2 and that's on the filling rod. And yes, most of my videos are geared towards people that are, I guess you'd call it lifers. They've been watching the show for quite a while now or whatever, and they kind of know what's going on. Well, here is a little small area that I've only got a few rods. And it's these are more fun, and they're not really crankbait rods. They're just light, what I call light BFS rods. They were rods that came with a light and an ultralight tip, but they feel, and what I'm going to use them for with the light tip are just way better. And this is a Toma. This is one that you've guys seen in some videos where I've caught the bass when first time I got out and was using the that little mini whopper plopper type deal. Made that 6 foot, and this seems to be the perfect. It's not too whippy. It just feels good. This feels actually about as good as this. And that's a CU double with the Aldebaran BFS. And yeah, you don't have to have that spool definitely to throw on a light rod, but I've already got it. So like I talked about earlier in this video, like if I'm going out, what these two rods, and there's nothing beats them in my mind. I've got a couple over there that aren't far off. Like you could use a few ultralights to throw some of these little or square bills. But sometimes you could be a little underpowered, like especially a square bill. Typically, I like throwing around a little bit of cover, over stumps and stuff. And yeah, if I get on a big bass, I'm gonna be in trouble with these. But the most fun you can almost have is taking one of these light rods, and no matter the length, doesn't really matter. I like the 6 foot. 6 foots are perfect. And throwing the little, whether it be the Dig It, like basically 6 grams, like a 4 to 6. No bigger than like whatever the 1.0, whatever the KVD 1.0, the Lucky Craft, that size, or smaller, any kind of crank. Now, if you go too small, then you're talking ultralight. Like actually, these will throw, if you guys heard me talk about the Dr. Krankenstein, they'll throw him pretty good, but they're almost, that's when I kind of like to go ultralight, like the Zephyr, and I'll talk about that shortly. But there's just that little in-between area, and I've had a horrible video where I went out, not a horrible video, it was a horrible day. These were the 2 stoutest rods I took out, and I was trying to test the ability to set the hook on a shaky head. Oh, big epic fail. You just cannot. I think I managed one fish on this guy, small one. I lost a nice fish on one of these. I don't remember which one now. I mean, I could feel it. I set the hook. Well, I didn't set the hook because these are not powerful enough for that 2/0. Which it's a light, very, very light wire. The VMC 16th or 8th ounce shaky head is a 2/0. Pretty. I don't know if they rate those away. It's a light wire 2/0 hook, but just where I have them skin hooked, these light rods just aren't there. The 6'6" Kind Teton is. The John Koo, I also tried that rod out. That rod isn't with the light tip. It's not bad. It's actually probably a little stiffer than these two. But where these fit awesome are for, well, you could do if you're fishing like TRDs, regular, not, you know, trying to rig them weedless. If you're fishing those smaller little cranks, even like a 1/4 ounce rattle traps, possibly the real small little jerk baits like you see me, I've done some testing on some of them, probably all right for that. But like once you get into regular jerk baits, these don't have enough of a, they're not stout enough to get that hard jerks like you need. But very good combos that I guess you could say technically I don't even need, because as you'll see me bring up some of these ultralights, the ultralights will throw. But these are just very fun rods, the lights. And kind of like where the Teton 661 would fall right before these guys, and then we're going to go to the ultralights. And then those other rods you just saw, they would be above the 661. So very good rods, very good combos. You will see all of those for sure in action. So give me 1 minute, and oh, I didn't mention it, but here would be one that falls in that category. Right before, I didn't even think about it. If you guys remember right, this is old school technology. The Gold Max, I was showing Charles this. 100% IM6 graphite. Light action. 6'8", light action. They recommended 1/4 to 3/8. 0 to 10 grams. They even gave you the grams on it. 6 to 12 pound line. That's an old Abu Garcia Gold Max rod that is just crazy good. It's my luckiest rod that I own. I put a Megabass handle on it. I've got it with the Edo AI. And this falls kind of right in there with that. It's softer than the 661 Teton, yet it's definitely not ultralight. It's more of a light, but maybe a little stiffer. You want me to open that? Javier wants me to open. You guys ever get these Propels? They come with the freaking stiffest, and you can see that bulge. Like, I struggle with these caps to get them off. I don't know what is going on with Propel, but Javier brought me one down. I hope I can get it off. There we go. What's funny is I can't grab it anywhere but with my pinky, and my pinky is what can get it off. That's nuts. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, I know. Fix the drag clicker on this dude. Awesome reel, awesome combo that is kind of, it's heavy. It feels like a tank compared to the two I just showed you, especially the CU double with the Aldebaran. But a very capable TRD is what Noah killed me on it one day with these. He caught like 8 bass in a row. I didn't catch nothing. He had the Zondo Rosso on it. Or I did, and he was fishing with it. But that is one that is probably, honestly, won't see a ton of action. So let me bring out, first we'll start with the brightest, loudest combo that I own. And I'm not even sure about that rod yet, but it goes kind of with that. So then we'll go with my next brightest, loudest. I know, you guys think there's a pattern here. There's not. Trust me. No pattern, because then you go with this. Well, I guess technically there is. The rod's still bright. So then we got that guy. And then, let's go here. And I guess I'm going to go, let's go full BFS. And I'm going to bring out, let's just set this guy right here. I'm going to bring out, I guess I'm going to show you what else. Just so you'll have an idea in case you missed the very first part. You bet, Doodle, I'm going to kill that cat. Get out of there. You guys want a cat? Yeah, by the way, it's not only like a circus around here, it's like a zoo. That's Javier's Christmas present, by the way, that you just saw. It's a cat named Ollie. Let's see, just so we can keep it in the camera. Hang on here. So I'm going to show you a couple others and a couple other options. Hang on, let me get everything out and then we'll talk about what I got going on. Where did that one go? Okay, now I'm set up to show you, and we'll talk about which I only had a couple of these to start this last season. Back into fishing, me and Charles, we went nuts. Hang on, I'm reading the comments. Okay, so to answer some of those, Jay says that he thinks his Janku Vivid with the light tip matches the 662. Well, I don't know. I'd say everything's close except for, like me, I do the shaky heads. I do not like the hookup rates on the Janku with those. And then someone asked about contemplating getting the Zillion. Well, you're glad I have them right here, and I'll put them on this rod and show you. So you see I got plenty of ultralight, I consider closer to super ultralight stuff that I can fish. But what I also can do and plan on doing, because I want to get this rod out and fish it. This is a very good rod. It was only like 15, 18 bucks, but it just feels good, and it's got definitely a soft tip. But I want to show you, it's basically built on a Toma, like well, the Toma rod's out now because it's got the light tip on it. But I could put the ultralight tip on the Toma and fish it. Or I could actually put this tip on it. That's what I was showing Charles. And I'm going to show you guys real quick the guides. If you remember what I've talked about, the only downside to the Toma was it had not quite as many guides as it should have, I felt. Well, this rod, guess what? This rod has enough. It's a 6 foot, and it's got, count the tip, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 guides on a 6 foot rod. It's a touch whippier than I like. I wish I probably should have got a 5.5 foot. That's another thing. As I'm showing you these rods, there's one, don't you even think about it. Oh boy. Oh, now you want me to all be buddied up with you. On ultralight rods, I don't even like 6 foot. I like 5'6" or shorter. Everything I've got out here, let me see. The lure killer, the big trout lure killer is 6 foot. And I'd say it's the only one, and kind of the CU double, Ace Hawk is a possibility because it's 6 foot, but they don't have a full solid tip. And I guess that's probably why the weight of a full, that means the whole half, like this whole part, and a lot of them come, and they're actually probably, will you get out of there, cat? They're a stouter, going to be probably a touch more powerful, but stronger rod just for that fact. But that whole half is solid. And just for how they balance and how they have a whippier feel, the ones that aren't, is why I definitely don't like them once they're 6 foot or longer. I like the Toma. I don't like it as well with that. I like it with the light tip, but when you put the ultralight tip on it, I don't really like it. And I even put this tip on it, and I still didn't really like it. It's just a little too long. It's not bad. I mean, you can fish it, and I know I'm probably getting nitpicky. A lot of you guys would probably like it. But so I plan on getting this rod out, and and also this rod. In order to do that, I'm basically when I go out fishing, like I talked about in a boat, I'm going to be only taking, well, you know me, I'll probably have the whole freaking boat loaded up, but I'm going to try to limit myself to just a couple ultralight rods. And it'll probably be this guy on something, which could be the new Corium rod or whatever coming up, and then this guy. But if not this guy, it'll be these two, because these two are very awesome, capable combos. Dark Wolf Ultra, Black Knight 2, Rock and Roll. Is that thing even focusing? The Cast King Zephyr. And people still asking me today, like the Cast King Zephyr combo, the reel and the rod. No, I got a reel over there. Still don't recommend that reel to nobody. I think there's better reels for the money out there on AliExpress. Depending on what you're going to throw, my favorite overall is still the Lingle. I like the Lingle. It'll outcast the Zephyr for sure. I've already done tests in littler, higher, lighter, heavier baits. The Lingle just outperforms the Zephyr, and it's a spool weight. The Zephyr is a good made reel. Doesn't palm bad. I still think the Lingle myself palms better. These two palm better. Perform overall a little better maybe, but they're not all around. Like the Zephyr is actually, yes, it's a better all around reel probably than these two. It's right there with the Lingle, but it's not on that going down to the little baits, which this rod is actually capable of, more or less designed for. So I don't know. Yeah, look, it's a good looking combo, but yeah. So when I go out on a boat, I'll probably be taking these. These I don't plan on switching around, changing nothing. There's going to be combos, and then this one also, but this will be just my little, and it probably won't, that cat, I don't know if you guys can hear his claws digging into me. He wants to sit in my lap. He must be a fan of the channel. So I'll have the 522 that I'll put one of these two reels on, or also this rod, just to get them out and get a feel, because out of all these rods and all these reels and everything I bought, the lightest combo that I can build and put together definitely has to include this rod, because the 522 SUL is the lightest rod I own, period. So not necessarily lightest reel now. I could probably make that Dark Wolf Ultra lighter than this. But what is an awesome combo is to take and put this right here. I'm going to try to, if I can get the scale. You guys will have to take my word for it because I'm not going to show you the top. Hang on a second. I just want to show you this. Because if you're wanting to go BFS fishing and you just want to hold the, whoa, you better get, I'm going to kill a cat. I'm going cat fishing. Hey, goofball, get out of there. That cat's going to die. Today. No, I'm not. I don't kill cats. I do, however, grab them, throw them in a little dog kennel, and leave them there overnight. That's what I should do with. He grabbed one of them rods. I'm not sure which one he had, but he stress tested it for me. I think it was a Zephyr. Zephyr could take it. What was I talking about? Oh my God, that cat done got me distracted. I'm going to try to wrap this up in less than an hour. Let's keep it under an hour. Okay, I remembered what we were doing. We're going to weigh this. So, and somebody was asking just now, they had asked about like feel of this compared to the Zillion. So I'm going to try to show you. Oh, I can't because of the frickin' ceiling. Oh well. Let's pull the tip off. So I'm going to try to show you. This is going to be hard to do. I'm going to try to show you what this thing weighs. The whole complete combo, minus line, but the rod and reel together. If you guys can make that out. 100, oh boy. Hang on, we can do it. We can do it. 195 grams. If you guys can see that. Hang on. Trying to show you where. Well, it's jumping between 195 to 201. So you won't get any lighter than this combo right here. Somebody will say they've got one lighter. Good for you. But you can't get much lighter than that. So as I get out of here, to answer the question on which one palming, this reel versus this reel. Now I'll be honest, it's a no-brainer for me now, especially this reel. They're coming, if you haven't checked, they're coming out with a newer version. I haven't seen, from what I can gather, since it's an Aldebaran BFS and it's not a new Aldebaran, they're not changing this frame. Otherwise, I think they would come out with an Aldebaran first, then an Aldebaran BFS. Typically, that's how they do that. So if you ask me which one palms better, you still can't beat this. This reel just palms better than any reel on the planet. The Dark Wolf Ultra is the next one that I'd actually say palms better, or as good, or feels about the same. But I honestly can tell you that this reel, even though it feels bigger, like if you look back here, there's nothing back there, but you're like where you grab it. And I can't tell you how much smaller it is, because I was talking with Jay about this. I watched the reel test when he did his thing on it. If you watch his little unboxing, and then when he tested it against the Metanium, he keeps calling this like bigger. I think he's trying to act like it's bigger than the newest Tatula that's out, that little Tatula 100 or whatever it is. This is definitely smaller. It palms smaller, and it's a smaller reel. It may look very close or whatever, but when I was up at Rogers, they had that newest Tatula, it's all silver, like the special edition one, which is basically the 100 frame. And this definitely, it was smaller. Now, it's not as small as Metanium, which looks like an ugly freaking whatever. The old Metanium I actually liked. The new Metanium, and I know Eddie keeps saying it's a very good caster, but I can't get over the looks. It's like I just sold that Hunt House to Charles for $30. That reel ain't bad. I mean, it's a $30 reel, but it looks like a direct copy of Metanium, but it's just not. It's not as good looking as, well, if you've seen the MK9 or a couple of those others that I'll just double my money. Instead of 30, I'll spend the $75 and in my mind have a lot better looking and working reel. But you won't see a Metanium in my future. You won't see another one of these. And I guess let's talk about that real quick. I know it's going to be, if you guys can make out, and I know I probably have this adjusted different ways, but this reel, all of my Aldebarans, I've talked highly on them, and that right there I've definitely talked negatively about. But I've also mentioned several times, and I tore this one down and cleaned it, but in hand, when you're doing the bench testing, you're just, you got the bench racing going on, and you are filling one, these do not feel that good. Aldebarans, the newer ones, do not, just something about the XG, I've got an HG and a 50. They all feel the same, and they do not feel good. This reel definitely feels like way freer. And I'm not talking about smoothness. I'm not talking about like it feels smoother, I think, but it feels freer, if anything, even when it's set to whatever. I don't have one on me right at the moment. The lingle, both my lingles feel freer than the Aldebaran. Actually, I think every reel I own feels freer than an Aldebaran. But here is the only thing that I can tell you. Once you cast a bait and you're reeling, or especially when you're fighting a fish, it's like there's nothing that feels or everything, it evens itself out, or maybe is even better. So it's a powerful, I guess, deal, but I don't know. I've always wondered about that, but I definitely don't plan on buying any more. I have the other two for sale, the 30 MGL, and it's a slim possibility I will sell this, but it's a possibility I'll just hang on to this one, because I do like this one. If you're wanting the smallest palmability and lightest weight one, you definitely want this guy. It'll smoke this one in that department. But in my opinion, the SV Boost spool of this, the fact that you can buy this spool for, well, this spool also, they're about the same, $54, or you could just buy the $13 spool with this one, or pretty much any other spool that Daiwa made for a zillion, as far as that goes, will fit in this. and the limitations that this kind of has, I don't know. I like this reel. At this space and time, I like this reel better. We're going to have this is going to elude me to a shootout between these two now. I don't know when it's going to happen, when my fingers aren't going to be froze. And we'll just see. We'll put these two to the test. Which one can cast at 1.7 gram accurately and the furthest with these are both the chameleon spools. And we'll just find out which one's the better BFSer now with aftermarket spools. With stock spools, hands down, this thing will smoke this guy. You put on I guess anything 4 grams or heavier, this thing will smoke any Aldebaran ever made. You want to bank on it? Let's bank on it. I don't know. That SV Boost is awesome. But yeah, I have to recommend. So if any of my, as I get out of here, I'll tell you real quick about if somebody asks me if any of my just cost me some euros. Watched the real test as well, so that made me doubt a little. Yeah, the real test, and I don't know, me and Jay's talked about this, and I've seen people, don't get me wrong, you'll hear me kind of joking around, making fun or messing with him. I have no issues with the real test. I watch his deals, and I think he's one of the best out there, probably the best out there for us type guys that, we're not tournament fishermen. We just want to know what's what with certain things. And he's definitely Shimano biased. He's never come out and said he wasn't. I don't even know what you'd call me more biased if I'm Daiwa, Shimano, AliExpress, or just what come in that day, in with the new and out with the old. That sucks because it's old, but I try to do the best I can to just for myself and you guys, what's the best for what it's doing. And so as I'm talking about that and the real test, I'll continue talking about the real test. Paul said hi to everybody, but this reel is so freaking smooth compared to the Aldebaran is like night and day. It is like Cadillac Yugo when it comes to the retrieve. Now, when it comes to casting, they're even. This is like Cadillac SCT or CTS or whatever the heck that is to just a regular Cadillac. They're virtually about the same. This reel, I've heard people asking about it, what my thoughts are, which I can't really tell you for sure because I haven't actually went out and fished it, but I've talked about it. And what it is for me, it's that, it's that 82 Mustang GT that just looks cool. It's the old 50s 5-window trucks with the big grills that have been souped up. They're hot rods. Yeah, you're going to outrun them with the Camaro Z06, whatever in the hell that knows, Camaros or whatever they got, and your little Dodge Viper Charger whatevers, but you're not going to look cooler doing it. This is definitely one of the coolest things out there, and so I plan on keeping it. You never know, though. I'm a wheeler and a dealer. It definitely casts, works well. So the real test, when he was talking about this, when I watched both videos shortly when they first came out, and when he unboxed it, of course he was more worried about it, the Shimano, like how it, in his mind they were copying Shimano when they designed this or whatever, even with the T-wing. And yeah, maybe if you haven't noticed that, whether it be Shimano, Daiwa, whoever, Ford, Chevy, you notice how all your trucks look the same. Look back in 10 years. Take 10-year chunks, the 80 to 90, the 90 to 2000 to 2000, 2010. Look at all them trucks. They all look alike. So whatever's selling at the time, if you guys remember right, all your trucks started getting squared off, right? Square body. Square body Chevy was one of the most popular. Fords were square. And if you guys remember right, the way I call it anyway, the first truck, the way all these modern trucks look right now, was actually a Ford, and I'm not bragging because it was a Ford, but the Ford F-250 came out. Do you guys know the truck I'm talking about? I can't remember exactly what year. I never had one. I don't like F-250s. They're just overkill. But that shape, and it had the humped up hood, And then I think Dodge was the one that jumped right on the bandwagon. Some of the Dodges started having the humped hoods, kind of the old school, which if you look way back, your old trucks, that's the way they were. They had this curved hood and they had rounded fenders off to the side. It was separate, not one solid thing across. Well, then they started changing and then they started doing different stuff. And then they end up, everything looks the same. Kind of like the Ford 2005, was it? They did the retro Mustang GT. Look awesome, right? Now they're, if you look at the new Ford Mustangs, now they're, well, not that freaking SUV thing, whatever that was or is. But now it's got more like space age look, right? But when it started out, then now Dodges and their Chargers and Challengers and all that, you know, Camaro, Bumblebee and all that had to go to the kind of retro deal. They, once one does something, if it makes money, guess what? Everybody's going to do it. So I don't know who copied who on what, but I know that the best thing about this reel that smokes all other reels is that. But even though, as I say best there, I may be wrong there. That SV boost spool may be the best thing about this reel. But if you watch the reel test, and I think he was using regular line, not braid, and I think he was afraid to probably cast this reel as hard as you can with that SV boost. Because I even doubt myself sometimes, like I'll cast it hard, and I'm like, I think I can cast it harder. And you'd be surprised how hard you can cast, not with this spool, with that SV boost, how hard you can cast and not have it backlashed. I find it very interesting, like raw fishing, right? But anyway, I'm not knocking the reel test, but he definitely did not give this reel its due justice on how it palms and its casting ability. He needs to readdress this one and maybe fill them. And I don't fill mine all the way up. I typically never on a deep spool, you know, whether it be an SV, especially when it's a deep dish, you know, deep dish, like a pizza spool, I don't mess with filling it all the way up. I know you're going to slow down your ratio and your gears and all that, but I typically will leave it a millimeter or two lower than what it was, because typically it's on a 32-4, or some even back in the day were even bigger, and so I'll stick to around a 32 millimeters height or whatever, and that's kind of what I did on this SV Boost, and man, that spool is awesome. And palmability, I've hated the Tatulas. I bought every Tatula that's come out. And of course, if you know the Daiwa lineups, the Tatula basically comes out and then a Zillion in a fancier version. You know, it's got doesn't have the extended shaft, so it's going to have a lighter spool. Just more capability out of the Zillion than the Tatula, since the Tatulas have been around. But I had the original Tatula Type Rs, the CT, that newer Type R thing, whatever, the 100. The latest one I had, and I sold it to Matt, was, I believe it was the bigger frame. No, wait, it was a small. It was like a Tatula 100, but the SV version. And it still palmed big. I had it, actually, you can watch a video back, one of my biggest bass catches, the beginning of last year, the year before. It's like a 6-pound bass I caught on the Tatula rod and the Tatula SV reel, and I said I don't even really like Tatulas, because I was like, Tatula baby. That was with that SV, and it palms bigger, not a lot bigger, but, and I think the biggest part is this cutout. I think they may have changed something in here, I can't tell, but they've definitely just made it, I like it now. It palms kind of big but comfortable. It palms better than the older Metaniums. The Cast King Zephyr that I currently own right now, I feel it's a more comfortable palming than it. Better than PW 100, or especially when you add this as a little bulkier off of like the Spirit Fox. I'd still have these two reels, which are very palmable as far as small in size, but I still go Aldebaran BFS better than any of them. Dark Wolf Ultra is second, like right there. Then this guy, just because he's got sharper edges. And this guy would fall in between. This guy's with the Lingle. Palm's a little different, but about the same. And close to the Alpha's Air, actually. If you guys, any of the older Alphas, not Air, sorry, why did I say Air? But the original Alphas, Pixies, had a not a huge palming, but they palm better than the old Zillions and stuff. And so I think they're finally there. They got a real good, comfortable palming reel that is crazy capable, and it is pretty small design, not too heavy. What does it weigh? About the same thing as the Lingo, like a 5.6 ounces or 5, something like that. I like it. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Hour and 15 minutes. If you have any questions, this just kind of show you what you'll see coming up. But when I go just to the creeks and streams, as you can see, I'm gonna have like a lot to pick from. These I plan on taking on the boat as my ultralights. These reels, since I don't want to, I might buy another one of these. I haven't decided yet. I don't really want to have to buy a lot of $300 reels. I like my $75 reels. So I plan on using these on bigger rods on the boat. These will take care of the BFS ultralight duties. These will be either regular or power BFS fishing with them on a light, medium light, or even in some cases a medium rod, fishing some baits. But when I am done, and I'm going to little creeks and streams, there's a possibility I won't even mess with taking these. I'll go crazy lighter, so I'll go to the 522 SUL. You'll see this corium coming up. Even this guy's pretty lightweight. I'm going to try him out. And then there's a possibility of this guy. How many? Let me count them. And I still have a few reels coming, but those reels, well, the one reel is BFS capable, I guess, ultralight capable. I've still got the turquoise fox that's going to be a silver fox. That's actually what's going on the, let me show you that real quick. I guess I didn't even talk about the reel. This reel is just on when I started this video out at the very beginning. I didn't even talk about how I have the Aldebaran 50 on it. Now I added a drag clicker to this Aldebaran 50, but it wasn't real loud. So I went through it and I want you to listen how crazy. I'm hoping it wears in a little bit. I made that louder. It's the loudest drag clicker I have now. It's a homemade one by me, Aldebaran 50. If you guys remember right, I've got this reel now, the Aldebaran 50, which is I think the loudest. And then I made one on the Aldebaran 30. This guy's got a homemade one. And it's pretty loud. So yeah. Everything, you got to have a drag clicker. If you own a if you own a reel, doesn't have a drag clicker, well, something's wrong. So anyway, stay tuned. Everything's pretty much set, not in stone, but everything's pretty much set where it is going to be now, except like I said, I got a couple of these floaters. This guy, I like it on this. The lure killer, I like, but I wish I had a light tip instead of the, because it's 6 foot, and I like it better as a light, not an ultralight. But it's a good capable. It's the least whippiest of the 6 foot ultralights. So I might just leave it so I'll have one there. But I plan on hopefully putting this reel on that corium rod that I got coming. Oh yeah, it hadn't moved since December 20th on the tracking. It finally showed it had been picked up on the 15th. So it's a possibility it'll be here this week. So I'm excited about that. Either one of these three, either this reel, or this reel. And actually probably not that reel. More than likely one of these two. If I like and it may come down to looks and balance. If I like the way it balances and looks with this, I'll leave it. But if something is off, I might go with this. And then if I do that, that means I'm going to buy another one of these, which I don't really want to do. I'm hoping this goes with it. And that'll just be my cool creek and stream, and I'll probably bring it to throw little poppers. And that's another thing with most of these ultralights. My favorite thing to do is take any of these guys right here that you've seen in my ultralight BFS kind of arsenal, rod or reel. Any of them feel about the same and feel very good. Take a little the Sonora poppers, or you could go as big as like you can throw the Pop X, but it's a little bit. On some of these rods, throws it no problem. A couple, it'd be a little touch heavy, but I don't feel you'd have an issue setting a hook with that size or smaller popper, but the Sonora little poppers are my favorite. Anyway, that's my favorite way to fish, period. And you've seen me, I had the 632 with the Aldebaran, Cutting Teton 632 and the Aldebaran that I had several year before last, I think, man. I was tearing them up on that White Python Pop X. Man, that's just, there's nothing funner than when you, well, there's nothing more exciting. When that big explosion, it's like the sun isn't even quite, it's just, you can kind of hint that the sun's getting ready to come up over the treetops, but it's not, and it's just light enough. You can make out everything, but your vision isn't all there yet. And so what you're hearing, your sight isn't actually as keen as what your hearing is at that moment, because you can't see as good as you should be able to. So stuff sounds just a little more intense. And when you can kind of make out, but the hearing, you hear that whoom, and that bass takes that little bait, and you know it's probably over 2, 4, 6, you know, your mind races, but you set the hook knowing you have an ultralight rod. Man, there ain't nothing better in the world. That before you even feel anything, you're the excitement, just that happening before you feel the weight of that fish on an ultralight rod, man, it's unmatched. And then once you fight one in, which, you know, I don't know how many I've caught over the years that way, not necessarily on ultralight rods, but lighter weight rods. I always like the lighter weight rods. But anyway, very freaking awesome. Anyway, guys, I gotta go. This is a long video. I told you guys it would be longer. It's the longest I've put out maybe ever. So if you have any questions, I'll try to get to them at some point in time. Yeah, me too. That's one thing I gather from this is I definitely going to need to do the next shootout I do when the weather's nice. These spools, Ford versus Chevy, Shimano versus Daiwa, Aldebaran versus Zillion, but Chameleon DIY spools versus each other. Which one can take the 1.7 gram, which I think I have both of them, and I did one a while back. Why the same exact thing? Which one can cast this the furthest and seem more accurately at casting? Stay tuned. It's coming up as soon as the weather gets warm enough where I can do it. I'm gone.